How you manage fear?
Take two. It's always good to have a second chance, isn't it? And the journey I'd like to share with you it's how I'm looking at my life, almost as a second chance. It's a very personal journey and a very personal story for me, and it's deeply connected to ISEC. And it took shape and it took life in this form last year when I was on a boat in Southern California with Lionel. And the first time it came to me that actually this is my life's quest, a life without fear. 20 years after joining ISEC, here I am knowing what that actually means and talking to you about it today. Since then, it's been quite a journey. Last year at this time at AAIC, I found the courage to do a coffee talk about what this means. And in the year that's gone on, I write about this, I've done talks about this, I go deep into workshops and mentoring circle, enabling myself and other people to live this. But this is the first time that I feel I'm actually stepping in a little bit further. So I invite you to, first of all, take a step back into my past with me. And when I was 8 years old, I was actually terrified by something. And this may resonate with some of you, it may not with others. But my biggest fear, and by the way, this involved my little brother, who at the time was 2. I was terrified of this. A little blue plastic fish that my 2-year-old brother would chase me around the house with, and I would run away screaming. So all I want to say, without trying to justify my fear, or talk about whether that still exists or not, that would be rather embarrassing. All I want to say is, we each have our fears. But let's just say some of them are more common, and we talk about them, and some of those are unique to each of us. And jokes apart, each of us has a unique cocktail of things that we're afraid of, that we sometimes don't even know we're afraid of and are holding us back. But fear is normal, but is it real? So one person's fear could very well be another person's passion. And here we are on the coast of the beautiful Red Sea, and I've had people trying to sell me on a snorkeling trip, not knowing that going out into the sea with fish is right up there with a horror story for me. So I'm strange, I know, people always ask me, why are you afraid of fish? How are you afraid of fish? I just am. Roller coasters, could do it, don't invite me again anymore. Spiders, no problem. No problem. You'll see men running out of the room, I'll run in and rescue the poor spider and the men. No problem at all. So our fears aren't universal. You know, there are things, and show of hands if any of these are fears for you, if any of you are afraid of anything here on this list. So, maths was another thing I was terrified of, or, going out dark forest at night. But our fears change over time. Not afraid of some of that anymore. And the other things, well, let's just say you get older. But we make up what we fear. We also hold ourselves back from many, many things. So some of the things, once upon a time, I thought would be too crazy to do. Like, why would you ever buy a house when you're unemployed? Or why would you publicly declare that you're unemployed? Why would you end a stable and a loving relationship? Or why would you ever have 200 strangers in your home? And I mean strangers, people you've never met before. But all of these are things I have since done, and there's many a story behind each of these that I'd love to share with you after hours. But our fears can limit us, not only in what we do or we don't do in the moment, they can actually, if we're not careful, define who we are. If you ever find yourself saying, I'm not the kind of person who would, I would never, I could never. That might just be the voice of fear talking to you. But would you recognize it? And fear takes many, many forms. We know, the spiders and the roller coasters, those ones are easy and they change over time. And then there are other deeper fears that we recognize. So, fear of standing in front of an audience and speaking, fear of rejection, fear of failure. What about fear of success? And the success, the change that it would bring with it, how that would change your life. Have you ever considered you might be holding yourself back? But fear takes its forms also in everyday emotions that we don't necessarily recognize as fear. So what about anger? Mr. Angry here. What his anger might be saying is actually, if I don't shout, if I don't make a point, my voice won't be heard. Or I'm angry because I feel put down, or I feel afraid, or I feel endangered. Alex made the point earlier today, every evil in the world is rooted in fear. If I feel powerful, if I know I can create what I want to in my life and the world, I have no reason to be angry. And what about arrogance? I hate to admit it, but both of these so far, and the others, I can relate to. Different ones at different times. But it's so easy to say, I'm right. But what is that really saying? What's the voice underneath that? It might be saying, do you know what? If I'm wrong, it makes me wrong. Or if I'm not right, I have to change my opinion. I have to change my worldview. Does that mean I have to change my very self? What about Mr. Bully here? That might be saying, actually, I'm going to put you down before you can put me down. Because I'm afraid of being hurt. And if I don't attack you first, maybe you'll attack me. There's a mortal underlying fear in most of these emotions. And here's the other side. I'm afraid that people won't like me if I express myself. And by the way, that really resonates with me as well. And if you ever find yourself being silent, not standing up, not saying what you want to, not doing in the world what you want to, not asking for that raise, not giving that talk, not leading that adventure, and people that you want to in it. There might be a voice in your head saying, you know what, it's never going to work, no matter how hard I try. For me, that often takes the form of, who am I? I'm not good enough, I'm not old enough, I am not smart enough to be the authority. Who am I? I'm a little girl in this big world. And I wouldn't know that because I would just say, oh no, that's okay, I don't want to necessarily contradict somebody else and we'll just get on with it. But there's some very deep underlying voices that are speaking to us with each of these emotions. And by the way, those same voices could also be expressing themselves in anger. So it's not universal, it's not same for all of us. It's a different cocktail for us. Here's a few more. If you ever find that you need to conform, if you need to appear a certain way, whether that's for your status, whether that's for your professionalism, or whether that's everything you put upon yourself to do, could it be something deeper, saying, actually, I'll be rejected, or I won't be respected, or I will discover that I'm not capable enough? So there's no one answer, but all of these are different versions of the voices in our head that limit us from going for what we want. And here's a few more. And again, would we recognize our own insecurities and those of others? So each of us has a different way that we come across, or from the outside, we may not perceive what someone else is insecure about. I may not understand why you don't think you're smart enough. You may not understand why I don't think I'm qualified enough. Someone else may not understand why someone else doesn't think they're pretty enough or smart enough. Every time you find yourself in a comfort zone of being a certain way, needing to appear a certain way, question it, challenge it. It might just be an underlying voice telling you that that's the only way you must be. And by the way, we spoke about conforming, and Mr. Cool here, not conforming is also conforming to your safety. If you find that you are serially going against the trend, bucking the trend, stop and question that too. So many different forms. But what doesn't work? Oh my goodness, fighting your fear. You cannot talk yourself out of your fear. You could waste your life going into the circle of, oh, I'm ready to do it, oh, I'm not. Oh my goodness, but I'm ready, oh, but I'm not. You spend your energy in that circle fighting your fear, and you cannot talk somebody else out of their fear. And why is it important to realize that? It's about where we put our energy. If we're here to change ourselves and to change the world, what do we put our energy into? And more on that later. But another thing that doesn't work is ignoring your fear. If you don't pay attention and you don't listen to those voices of fear within us, they'll just tell their own stories. And some of the stories may go, oh, I never wanted it anyway, or I just didn't feel like doing it, or maybe I'll do it later, or you know what, here's a reason why I can't do it. If you've ever talked yourself out of something, you might just be ignoring the real reason why you're not doing it. Also, buying into what your fear tells you to do is not the answer. Because if it says, before you can apply for that job, you must have 100% of the qualifications on it, which, by the way, is what apparently most women tend to do anyway. We tend to look at it rather objectively, rather than saying, what would I love? Would I love to go for this opportunity? Yes. Let me do it now. It may not be available in a year's time when I've got all the skills. Or do I want to go on that travel and adventure now? Well, yeah, let me do it now. It may not be available. So fighting, ignoring, or buying into what your fear says also doesn't work. So what's another way to look at that? Our fears do tell us what to do, but it's not always what we think. And we hear it often that, hey, face your fears. So I could spend this entire conference snorkeling, and I've probably enjoyed very much. I've been invited on a very romantic date, which to me is like a horror experience to go snorkeling here off the coast. And hey, maybe I'll do it, but that's not my purpose. It doesn't call to me in this moment. What is my purpose? My purpose is fulfillment of humankind's potential, starting with myself. What do I need to do that? One of the things I needed to do that was to stand up here and say this to you. And even there were voices saying to me, who are you? And by the way, I've done this talk many times before, and others. In the last 6 weeks, I've probably held talks, workshops, mentoring circles for about 600 people. Some of them senior VPs standing in the audience because there were no seats available anymore. And yet I ask myself, who are you? Who are you to do this? The voice inside me says, oh, but some people have heard this talk before, how can you add value to them? Are you sure you want to do it? Maybe you should change it, maybe you should cancel it, maybe just don't do it, they'll just get bored. Yeah, don't do it. To be very, very honest and vulnerable with you, one of the things that I would love to do is address the ISEC plenary. And for months I had a vision of what I'd love to say to them. But remember Mr. Silent, who says, oh no, don't go for it anyway, who are you? Didn't do it. Didn't do it. So knowing what I would love is not about what would I love and be comfortable in each moment of my life. That's not knowing what I would love. It's what am I here to do? What is my purpose? And what are the actions that I can take in this moment and in this year and in the next year to fulfill that? And and by the way, our purpose is also to come here, have fun, enjoy ourselves. So yeah, one day I might say today, actually, what I'd love to do really is to sleep, even though it means I might miss a deadline. So what? Another day I might say, yes, let's go snorkeling. And those other days I might have to say, do you know what? I hear you voices of fear. You're all trying to keep me safe and in the comfort zone. But no, thank you. I'm going to take that extra step anyway. So doing the opposite of what my fear tells me to do, if it says, no, stay away from fish, just choosing to always be with fish might even get me eaten by a shark. So it doesn't always work. But recognizing, addressing my fear and going for what I want anyway is the way for me. So how do you get to a life without fear? The first step has to be to acknowledge there's something I want in my life, in the world I want to create, that I'm not doing. Why? Fear is anything that limits us from being our best selves, from creating the world we want to do, from having the life we want to have. And it takes the form of those thoughts, emotions, actions, behaviors, voices in our head. So if I'm not in that zone, something is limiting me. And then recognizing, what is it saying to me? What forms is it taking for me? Going deeper, understanding it a bit better. But then not trying to fight it. So where do I put my energy instead? Actually, what would I love? And again, this is a great plenary to address. This is a great audience because you're all driven by your purpose and your passion. So when you put your energy there and you take wise action, and the reason I say wise action is it's also very easy to take action, but take action that distracts us. So I could very easily say, so I'm working on my book, and it's so easy for me now to say, oh, I'll just do this one article, I'll just do another talk, and at least my message is getting out there. Yes, that is also for me to do, but it's recognizing that maybe the reason I'm not progressing that book is not because I don't have the time or I'm doing other things. Maybe the reason is there's something inside me saying, who are you to be an authority on this subject? If you do this, your life will change. Are you sure you want that? No, it's okay. We're okay in the comfort zone, we're doing enough. And as we say in Isaac, you learn as you do, learn by doing. So take the, and people ask me many times, I had a great chat with Peter the other day talking about this, and he said, well, are you ready? And so many people ask me that today. The thing is, you don't have to be ready, you just have to do. Do that one thing which will take you to the next thing, which will get you to something you love, which will take you further. And by the way, every time we go further, there's new fear. Because if you're not experiencing any fear, you're either living in the comfort zone or you're in denial. Every time we go further, there's fear. Fear is normal. It's about what we do with it. How we manage it, where we put our energy, and do we choose to go forward anyway? And this virtuous cycle of fear drives us forward. Because if we didn't have that sweet spot of that little bit of excitement and that little bit of fear, we wouldn't be where we are today. We'd be in our comfort zones. So, let me leave you with one mantra, which is not to do one thing every day that scares you, but to do one thing every day that calls to you, even if it scares you. Because courage is not the absence of fear, it's the presence of a love that is stronger. And then, Mr. Scary Fish and all your fears might just fade away, and it might just lead you to everything you love, and to a world where there's peace and fulfillment of humankind's potential. Peace through fulfillment of humankind's potential. Because a life without fear is not a life which has no fear. It's a life without fear directing your life. And that's where the magic happens. Thank you.